All right, let's look at 31 first. All right, 31 through 36, we're completing a square. All right, so we're going to go by these 5 rules. All right, when we complete the square, we're going to go by those 5 rules, okay? 31 says x squared plus 6x plus 9 equals 16. All right, what's the first rule tell us to do? The first rule says what? All right, what are my variable terms? I've got an x squared and an x, correct? Those are my variable terms. So I want everything else on the right side, these two on the left.
Excuse me, I have one more announcement. I meant to announce this yesterday. We are proud to announce that Miss Amelia Townsend has been selected as the Hale High School Bryant Jordan Scholar Award winner for our school. Also won our classification in our region. So she will represent us in Birmingham in the spring. So congratulations to Amelia Townsend.
All right, subtract 9 from both sides. When we do, we're correct. That's completing the square. All right, this becomes x squared plus 6x plus 9 equals 9 plus 7, 16. This left side is now what? Perfect square trinomial. That's what the next step tells us to do. Factor. All right, how do we factor a perfect square trinomial? Well, we take the first term, take the square root of it. That's square root of x squared is x. The sign on the middle term plus the square root of the constant, there's 3, all that squared, and it equals 16. Fourth step tells us take the square root of both sides. All right, so take the square root of the left side, square root of the right side. This radical cancels that squared. We're left with x plus 3 on the left, and this equals the square root of 16 is plus or minus 4. All right, the last step tells us to do what? Solve for the variable. Subtract 3. So x equals 2 different equations. We have a positive 4 minus 3 and a negative 4 minus 3. That positive 4 minus 3 is 1. Negative 4 minus 3 is negative 7. All right? All right, we got y squared minus 6y plus 2. All that equals 0. Go ahead, get your variable terms on the left, everything else on the right. So subtract 2. Our variable terms in this case are y. So we have y squared minus 6y equals negative 2. Correct? All right. Half your middle term. So 6 divided by 2 equals 3. We square that. That equals 9. Add it to the left. Add it to the right. Okay? Third step. The third step says to, we have to rewrite this. So we've got y squared minus 6y plus 9 equals 7. Agree? 9 or negative 2 plus 9 or 9 minus 2 equals 7. All right? Third step says factor. So we've got the square root of our first term, y, the sign on the middle term, and the square root of the constant. And all that equals 7. Take the square root. The radical cancels. We've got y minus 3 equals plus or minus. All right. When you get here, just get a calculator. Take the square root of 7. When you get your calculator.
How do you square root it on a calculator? Because I've been never did.
There should be, like where the x squared is. Like grab a calculator. Wherever the x squared button is, now there's some of them that has, if you have, let me see which one you have. That one has an x squared button. You see the x squared button?
That right there?
Yep, right here, x squared. And then above that, so you said second, x squared brings up the square root. There's one of them, the gray Casio. It has, that one right there has the square root button. You don't have to hit second. Like, it's just on there, and it's got the square root sign and then a box. But when you take it, you get 2.6. So now, last step is solve for the variable. In this case, the variable is y. So we add 3. We have two different.
If it was like 2.65, would it be 2.7?
Yes, sir.
Rounded.
So we've got y equals positive 2.6 plus 3, and y equals negative 2.6 plus 3. So this equals 5.6, and this equals what? 0.4. That's your two answers. All right, any more questions on the completion of square ones?
Number 35.
Mm-hmm.
You add 7 number 7.
Add 7.
What would you do?
You'd actually add 4.
Complete the square. We'll start off on complete the
You could, yeah, you go ahead and you don't have to worry about moving anything over because the variable terms are over there. So you just go ahead and to step 2. All right. The only thing that will be different is if we have a leading coefficient that's not 1. All right. Then after you get your variable terms alone, then you divide by that leading coefficient. If you get a decimal, that's okay. You get a decimal. You still do it the same way. All right. Does that make sense? So there could be a step right here that is divide by the leading coefficient. That may happen, it may not. It depends on what your leading coefficient is. All right, let's look at quadratic formula one. Let's do 39. All right. 21x squared plus 5x minus 7. Equals 0. All right, the only thing you have to do, this has really 2 steps. Find A, B, and C, plug it in the quadratic formula. That's all you have to do. All right, so find A, B, and C. A is what? B is what? C is what? All right, we found A, B, and C. They go in order. As long as, make sure that we go in order, x squared x constant, or A squared A constant. All right, if you get one that's got 21x squared minus 7 equals 5x, you got to move that 5x over and it goes in between the x squared and the constant. You got to put it in standard form. All right? That's the only really rule that you have to know about quadratic formula. Is to find A, B, and C, it's got to be in standard form. All right? Take these 3, plug in the quadratic formula. So x equals the opposite sign of b plus or minus the square root of 5 squared is 25. Minus 4 times A, which is 21, times C, which is negative 7, and all of this over 2 times 21. Work what's in the parenthesis, work what's under the radical. All right, what's under the radical, go ahead and plug it all in. Say second, or if I take the square root, go ahead and put 25 minus 4 times 21 times negative 7. You should get 24.7 or 24.8. All right, so plus or minus 24.8 all over 2 times 21 is 42. How many equations do you have? 2. All right, the first one says x equals negative 5 plus 24.8 all over 42. And the second one says x equals -5 minus 24.8 all over 42. Plug both of them in your calculator. So if we say -5 plus 24.8 divided by 42, we get 0.47.5. So 0.5. And then if we say, we subtract, we get -0.7. And that's our two answers. I took all this, plus all this under here. I just plugged in the whole thing in the calculator. Even the square root.
And we need
38.
How did you plug into the calculator? What you did?
I just hit the square root, so hit your second x squared. And then I would say 25 minus parentheses
Oh, parentheses.
4 times 21 times -7, close parentheses twice, because it opened one for you in the beginning.
Okay.
And then hit enter.
It still says syntax there.
What negative sign?
Oh,
That's one. Your second, and you said 25 minus 4 times 21 times -7, close parentheses twice. Don't use the subtract button. There's a minus sign down here. There's the negative sign at the bottom in parentheses. Don't use the. All right, 38. All right, how do we get this in standard form? How do we put this in standard form? How do we move it over? Subtract 20. So we got x squared minus 8x minus 20, and all that equals 0. Now find A, B, and C. What's A?
O is 1.
A is 1, B is what? -8, C is what? So now you've got x equals, the opposite sign of b, well, if it's already negative, it's just positive. Plus or minus the square root, what's 8 squared? 4 times 1 times -20. What's 64 plus 8? 80. 144. What's the square root of 144? 12, right? Plus or minus 12. So if you plug all this into your calculator, you get 8 plus or minus 12 all over 2. Okay? Make this your two equations. So you've got x equals 8 plus 12 over 2, and x equals 8 minus 12 over 2. What's 8 plus 12? What's 20 divided by 2? That's your first answer. What's 8 minus 12? 4. 4 times 4. What's -4 divided by 2? There's your two answers. Good, Will. All right, I'm going to give you, we'll get out of here. I'm going to give you about 20 minutes to, I'm going to give you, well, I'll give you about 15 minutes to finish this review. It's on page 609, 31 through 36, and then 38 through 43. You'll turn it in, and then I'll give you the test.